Hey everyone, it's Mare from SickMom, checking in for day 19. Day 19. Almost at day 21, almost 3 weeks. Oh, it's going by fast for me. This is not turning into something that I'm finding really that hard or unpleasant, and it's very good. I wanted to talk a little bit about sustainability of certain ways of eating today, and part of the reason you guys should know the amount of research that I do on a daily basis. On average, since starting Carnivore, I've probably continued to do at least an hour of research every day, and that comes in the form of reading documents and watching interviews and listening to podcasts. And I've mentioned that before, but I really do take this seriously as far as the nutrition science that goes behind this, and just it's it's important to me, as I know that the longer I do this, the more questions there'll be, and I have some very sciencey friends in my community that are probably going to want to know some more details, and I like to be prepared. I like to have that information as opposed to, I'll get back to you. I obviously I'm not ever going to know it all. It's not like I'm studying this to a PhD level or anything, but I'm living it, and I know how I'm starting to feel, and I'm starting to feel good. Um, it's it's kind of cool because when I hear about other people's journeys and what it was like when they first got started, and how things like cravings disappeared, and that they really were starting to know when their body was hungry, that's something that I'm finding also. Compared to other ways of eating that I've gone through. So I'll give you the worst one. The worst example for me was after having done the ALCAT tests for food sensitivities and intolerances. It's that particular test. I live in Canada. I had to go and get some blood drawn. Those blood samples were sent down to the US to a lab there. They tested for 120 different foods, additives, and different substances that you might find in food. And I came back mild, moderately, or severely intolerant to over a third of the list. So right off the bat, there were a whole bunch of things that were just taken away. There was no choice about it if I wanted to follow the plan that ALCAT lays out for the patients that get these tests done. And they're not cheap, by the way, but it was well worth it just to know. But you go on a diet where it's a 4-day rotation. And what that means, and the purpose behind that, is because you are never eating the same foods day after day after day, there is a 3-day pause in between the foods. And they group the foods in kind of like families. So, the one day, the vegetables that I had, I believe it was day 2, which was always the worst day for me. My vegetables that I was allowed was like Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, and broccoli that all give me some level of gas. Cauliflower is worse than the other ones. And when you're dealing with irritable bowel, and the purpose for going on this plan is to reduce the amount of gas and pain. I was very limited in what I could eat, and there were a few other things, but I kind of had like a dozen or so ingredients, if you will, that I could choose for in a day. And sometimes you just had to find a way to make it work. I mean, and things that are not intuitive to go together. Things like, having tuna as really the only meat that I could have on that one day, with either Brussels sprouts, broccoli, or cauliflower. And the seasonings I was allowed was ginger and garlic that day, and a little bit of salt and a little bit of fat. But that's really hard to follow. It's really hard to sustain that. So I loathed day 2 until I figured out how to make millet pancakes out of pretty much nothing but millet and water and some baking powder. And at least that I could have millet pancakes with blueberries. So I would just warm up some blueberries and have that, and because I wasn't allowed other condiments and stuff at that time. So I followed that heinous plan for 3 months. And when you go down the ALCAT path, you have to commit 100%. You cannot cheat, because the whole point is that you're eliminating the foods that you're severely, moderately, or mildly intolerant to for a period of at least 3 months, if not 3 to 6 months, depending on how you respond. And you're only allowed to eat from the foods that you're not intolerant to, but you don't get to pick what day. Like I said, it's a rotation. They group the foods by day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. So on day 1, you can eat from that group. On day 2, you can eat from that group. And it was incredibly limited. And it was painful sometimes because I was hungry all the time. And when I get really hungry, my nausea goes through the roof. And my naturopath had already advised me at that point, because of the irritable bowel and that sort of thing, that I should avoid eating raw fruits and vegetables because my system just can't handle it. So hence, when I start kind of developing this narrative about me not tolerating or being able to digest fruits and vegetables well, this is what happened on the ALCAT diet, because I would be forced to make choices when there was no food available. And try as I might, you can't pack food for every single occasion. You can't foresee when you're going to end up working late, or that you had to skip lunch, or, you get called out to a meeting and you forgot to bring your lunch bag or something, or you go out for a restaurant with friends and family and there's nothing you can eat. And so I would resort to eating raw fruits and vegetables if they were on hand and if they were allowed for that particular day. Just because it's something that, anyone can walk into a grocery store and grab a couple carrots or some celery, right? You can't always cook them, so you just eat what you've got. By the end of the 3rd month, I looked like hell, and people say to me from around that period of time, they're like, yeah, you looked like you were really, really sick. And the pain that I had originally gone to the naturopath for about 6 months previous to starting the ALCAT diet, or no, actually by that point it was 6 months total. Anyway, 6 months previous, I had gone into this naturopath practically pleading for my life, saying, I'm in so much pain, I don't want to eat anymore. And I had so much inflammation, and my irritable bowel was just off the charts, and I was yet undiagnosed with everything else. So some of my symptoms didn't make sense. Nobody could figure out what was wrong with me. And at the end of the 3 months on the ALCAT diet, I had gone from feeling not too bad because I'd done 3 months of just sheer elimination prior to that. And then 3 months of ALCAT, the pain that I had was worse than ever. And I was really literally saying, I just don't want to eat. It hurts too much for me to eat. So I felt like crap all the time. That was not sustainable. That was one of the programs that my naturopath was, he just kind of said, okay, you know what, your body's telling us it's not happy with this, so we need to stop that. So I did, and we kind of came to a compromise where I said, okay, I'm not going to do this rotation anymore because it's awful. I will try to stick to the list of foods that I am tolerant to, that I tolerate well, and, start trying things and re-adding things that aren't on that list that I didn't get tested for to see how I was responding to things. Because once you've eliminated a lot of stuff from your diet, you will know almost instantly, within hours, whether or not a food is starting to affect you. You might not realize that it's the food until the next day. Like when I was trying to introduce quinoa into my diet, I found that every time I ate quinoa, I felt like I could, my body was heavy. I was tired. I just couldn't stay awake. And I was grumpy. And that was after like a few days of eating quinoa for breakfast every day. And one day I said, okay, I'm not going to change anything else. I'm just going to take the quinoa back out and see how we go. Sure enough, everything resolved itself after that, that I had been experiencing while eating quinoa. So you become really in tune with your body, and it's important to develop that level of connection with your gut, with your body, with your pain, your levels of swelling in your body and inflammation. And so I'm coming to carnivore after already doing like 10 years of studying my own digestive system, and through various different mechanisms have tried to heal it unsuccessfully. And that none of the plans, the therapeutic plans that I was on, they either didn't work, they were only meant for a short duration, and thank God, because some of them were also like you're drinking broth every day and not much else for like a month, and it's kind of brutal. Sure, it tastes good, and being on a liquid diet is really easy, but the reintroduction of foods at the end of that is often very painful. And, it just really messes, I found, with your hunger cues. Those things didn't work for me. And now we've got carnivore, and that's where I'm coming from when I tell you that this is a lot easier. I can walk up to a McDonald's and get a beef patty if I need to, or Wendy's or whatever fast food restaurant. I would probably stick with the ones that, it's really well-raised beef. Like we've got A&W here in Canada, and it's all grass-fed, and it's really tasty, and you can ask them for no seasoning. So there are options for just going out and getting a meat cookie, as Kelly Hogan, another very well-known carnivore, that's what she calls hamburger patties. She calls them meat cookies. So that is accessible, and it's not particularly expensive to just go and grab a couple of burger patties. Whereas when you're searching out things that are gluten-free, that cater to your diet, and trying to, like always keeping fresh fruits and vegetables, which I was often too sick to eat. So it would end up in the garbage because there wasn't anybody else in the house that was eating the fresh fruits and veggies either. So huge waste of money. This is like, I make myself some meat. I might have enough for a meal or two, and I feel like I'm getting plenty of variety because, hey, why not have some hamburger patties with your steak? You get a different texture. So, you can have variety in that way. And, and I just find the different flavors that you get from different cuts of beef. I mean, that's been pretty entertaining because I've never really studied the flavor of beef as much. I mean, I know what I like, I know what I don't like, but now I'm going to be exploring other cuts of meat too, because, hey, all I'm doing is eating meat, so why not become an expert in the meat that I'm eating? I am not going to go down the grass-fed organic route. That would be cost prohibitive. I live in cattle country. Alberta is known for its beef. So I am living in the right province to be on a carnivore diet. For those of you who live in other parts of the world where beef is perhaps not as high quality or scarce, I can understand that that might be a challenge for you, is getting access to really good meat. Here in Calgary, there are no issues with that. And I'm really grateful for that. And, probably one of the reasons why I love meat so much is because I was raised on Alberta beef, and it's really great quality. And the people who raise cattle here are very conscientious, and, they're they're usually pretty good bunch of hardworking people. So, and I really respect what they do. That being said, I know not everybody is going to agree with me, and I have vegans in my world and vegetarians in my world, and I love them just as they are. I'm not going to sit there and preach to them that meat's the only way, because as I've mentioned in the past, I know lots of people who are vegan and vegetarian and who are very successful at it. Their bodies love it. Mine doesn't. So that's why we're going this route. So that's a bit more about my history. And I thought that might be an interesting tidbit for some of you that weren't on that part of my journey, or if you're just new and meeting me here on SickMom for the first time. If you've got any questions about any kind of testing that I've had done in the past. And, a lot of people ask, well, are you celiac? No, I'm not celiac. I'm just severely intolerant to wheat. And I'm also severely intolerant to rice, which usually throws people for a loop. And I've even had doctors look at me and say, how can you be intolerant to rice? Don't you know that the World Health Organization recommends that, third world and starving countries or developing nations, that they have rice as their staple grain? And I'm like, I understand that, but does that mean just because you're not allergic to cats that I can't be allergic to cats? Because guess what? I am. So it's an individual physiology thing, and I feel very strongly that people should do what is right for their individual physiology. So I'm just speaking about my experiences and wanting to share this. And if there's ever anyone that this can help, that is my goal. My goal is not to convert everybody to becoming carnivore. I am trying to get healthy. So that's kind of about it for today. I'm probably going to explore some of the other eating plans that I've been on before with you in other videos, especially if that's something that is of interest to you. Just stay tuned. And if you like today's video, give us a big thumbs up, show us some love, and I would love it if you would subscribe to this channel. We are trying to grow this channel out, and it's been in the works for 2 years, and I'm finally well enough that I can undertake this project, and I really hope you'll come along with me as we go. So don't forget to hit that notification bell as well, so you know exactly when the next videos are landing here on YouTube. So for today, this is SickMom checking out.